So I'd like to do a video on how the resources from the previous colonial countries are still arriving in the empire countries exactly the same as under colonialism. And, uh, and now it is being done through proxy governments. So there is this talk about Iranian proxies controlling the Middle East, but we're not hearing about US proxies or China proxies or Canadian proxies. So the reason for this is that the mass media don't want the empire populations to know that the exact same exploitation is going on that went on under colonialism. And I'll give you an example, just an example. It happens the whole of Africa, whole of South America, Central America, the Middle East, everywhere. So just in the news, there is a few days ago, special forces, active service, military suicided in outside of Trump's Tower, Las Vegas, and they mentioned there's no connection between Trump, Eric, and the mass media just say no connection, but there is a connection, and I just want to point it out as an example of how the resources are being removed from the all of the former colonized countries are losing all their resources. So in the Congo, the Chinese have now bought the cobalt mines, and they take the raw cobalt to China, and they make it into electric batteries. And Eric Musk has is building a factory in Shanghai. Must be a joint venture because China don't allow foreigners, to my knowledge, to to own companies. So it must be a joint venture. But they say Eric Musk is building a electric battery factory in Shanghai. So it was the suicide was in a Tesla vehicle, and Tesla inside the electric battery, the main ingredient is cobalt, other ingredients, but let's just focus on the cobalt. So in the Congo, the Chinese are taking the cobalt, take it to Shanghai, make it into batteries, sell it to America in Tesla, and then this is the same system used by the British and in colonial times in India, and just a moment, and in India, the British would buy raw cotton, transport it all the way back to England, make it into finished shirts, I think in Manchester, ship it all the way back to India and sell it to the Indians. So colonialization was all about profit and business. The colonizing empires, all they wanted to do was take as much of the resources from India, from Africa, from wherever they could, and bring it back in raw state, make it into a finished product, sell it back to Africa or to somewhere else. So another example, be quiet. Another example is in Liberia with Firestone tires, and in the early 1920s, the Firestone bought millions of acres of rubber plantations in Liberia, and a few years later they were accused of paying slave labor, and they took the raw rubber back to America, made the really nice Firestone tires, excellent quality, and they sold them all over the place. And this is another example of how the colonialization transferred to proxy governments in places like Africa or the Middle East or South America, and these proxy countries, they get in power by illegal means because they don't have a mandate from the population, because they're working for the empire countries to get commission for themselves. None of the resources, the wealth and the resources sold by these proxy governments in the former colonies goes distributes to the rest of the country. It all goes to the empire countries, with a small cut taken by the proxy governments. And these proxy governments, they take on like three different leadership forms. The one is a fake democracy, like they have a fake election, and the same person wins for 50 years, like Assad, a 50-year brutal dictatorship. But you go to Africa, you see some of the democracies, and you have the same leader. They win every election. They win like 90% of the election, 95.2% of the election. But everybody you talk to in that country, they say, I'm not voting for the leader. I'm not voting for him. And then come the election, they win over 90%. And the foreign observers say, "Oh, we think there was a little bit of cheating going on, but basically it was legal." And everybody in those countries, they know the election is fake. They know the person who wins is the one who has kept the mining corporations happy and kept the empires happy and has paid enough bribes, and they win the election. So this is this election. Everyone knows in the country that it's a scam. This election is done so that in the empire countries, in the UK, in Canada, in America, they can say, "Oh, we've given Africa independence. They have their own elections. They have their own leaders. We're not involved in stealing like in the colonial times. They have their own elections, and it's like these democracies, Canada, the UK, they stand up. The politicians stand up and say and give some speech about democracy, but all the wealth is coming from the former colonies to support the democracy, and this reminds me of in ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, be quiet now, girls. In ancient Greece, they had democracy, but at the same time they had the democracy, I don't know the percentage, but maybe half the population were slaves. So, and the slaves had no vote, and this was a Greek democracy, and the same democracy we have now, like in the UK, in France, Holland, Belgium, Norway. We have democracy, but the economy is relying on the former colonies, on taking the resources without the permission of the population in those former colonies. Now the I can give one example. Another example. Let's take Canada. The Canada the mining and mineral corporations in Vancouver. There's about something like 800 mining corporations in Vancouver, Canada, registered, and you will have Canadian one Canadian mining corporation. They will go to Africa. There's a brutal dictator. Oh, they didn't put the brutal dictator there. They just went and signed a contract with him. But there's a brutal dictator who has illegally got in. And I just jump one step forward. These former colonies, they all run by dictators without a middle class. There's a middle class has checks and balances to make sure that the resources are distributed fairly, not equally, but fairly within the country. So like for example, with Assad, is a brutal dictatorship, yes, but all the former colonies are run by brutal dictatorships because brutal dictatorships will will export the resources through empire, through corporations, multinational corporations, without distributing anything to the local people. They take their cut and export everything out, same as colonialism. So there you have the Canadian corporation in Africa, and they know the situation. They know there is no middle class. They know they can go straight to the leader, buy the rights from a region to mine those rights. Now they are becoming like the empire, and the country they have bought the rights from is now a proxy of them. They now control that country. There's a lot of money moving within these multinational mining corporations. So so now they sign the contract, and then they go back to Canada, and in 1 year they will start mining, for example. And now this dictator in Africa, he's just sold a part of his country to a foreign country. He didn't ask the population, do they agree? Do they want to sell? A government is acting on behalf of the people to govern the people. That's in the America, the reason they had the American Revolution, because the government was not working for the people. So these African governments, they're not working for the people, they're working for themselves. They send their grandchildren to Shanghai, to Beijing, to Los Angeles, to Moscow, to London to study. Like, Assad studied in London, become a dentist, watch out. The brutal dictator was studying to become a dentist. I think he was a dentist. So be careful when you go to the dentist that he's not a brutal dictator who will go abroad and the evil Assad, but he, but so these dictators in Africa taking their cut of the resources. They send their grandchildren to the empire. They get dual citizenships. They get married. Like Assad married a British woman. Now in Moscow, his wife wants to go back to the UK, but apparently the UK won't allow her back. They say it's dangerous. She's got cancer. She was born in England with just maybe Syrian parents, and all of a sudden these dictators, one moment they're studying in your country, then the next they're a big enemy, brutal, dangerous. So let's go back to the Canadians. They've signed a contract with the African dictator, and there's no question about whether he is legal or not. But it's criminal. He's a criminal, and he's stealing from the government treasury, and the Canadians know it, but they look the other way because it's not their government. They had nothing to do with it. They're just coming along with a lot of money with the high tech mining industry, and so then the land has to be cleared. Now the Canadians have leased part of the African country, and the land has to be cleared. But there are already thousands and thousands of miners there, artisan miners, like small scale family miners on that land. But now, overnight, they have to be moved off. And if they don't move, they're shot. Not by the Canadians, of course. The Canadians don't do the shooting. But the local dictator, they know that the land has to be ready for the Canadians. So they pay the military. And the military, either they do it themselves or they hire some mafia, some drugs dealers or some gangsters or whatever. Probably they just do it themselves. They go in shooting, they get the miners off the land, and bury those who refuse to flee, who are shot and buried in unmarked graves. Now this then the Canadian Prime Minister will stand up and give a speech about democracy. They're legally, it's not their responsibility, not their country. Legally, the Canadian government has done nothing wrong. It's the Canadian corporation that has signed a contract with a dictator, but it's not the Canadian government. So this distancing of the empire countries is a crime that the mass media are covering up. And there is one. I just try and touch it as quick as I can. One scandal in Canada that showed this, but generally speaking, the mass media, they avoid anything that could implicate the proxy country from doing massacres and killing, and they just, because it's not theirs, it's a foreign country. Okay, their company has made a contract and is getting the resources, but it's not their, it's nothing to do. They don't have to care because it's not their voter. Their voter just gets the resources and the money, and it's the main thing is to hide this fact from the empire population who vote. The mass media will be hiding the exploitation from the public, because they will be relying on the public to vote for them, and eventually, and you look at the in Gaza, they couldn't hide it, and the Dems lost the election. But generally speaking, they try and hide it. So this genocide in the Gaza is just one part of the whole system of exploitation. It's just the restaurant against Netanyahu. It's only one restaurant, right? And the main thing is to get the. Just a moment. The main thing, hold on, is to get. Just some of the people coming in the camera. The main thing is to get the information out to the general public in the empire countries about the level of exploitation. And it's the Canadian president. I didn't kill the people who stayed on the land who the Canadian company leased. It wasn't me. So then, once more scandal that came up after Gaddafi was eliminated, and there was one Canadian construction company, and they were accused of bribing the Gaddafi government. And then Gaddafi became an evil, bad dictator all of a sudden and had to be eliminated. So then the Canadian prosecutor, or I don't know who it was, maybe there's some prosecutor, maybe not the state prosecutor, but there was someone in Canada who was going to prosecute this company for bribing Gaddafi. And then Justin Trudeau intervened and said, no, don't prosecute the Canadian company. We have to protect Canadian jobs, right? You see, we have to protect Canadian jobs, so you shouldn't prosecute the Canadian company. So it was like there is no hope. Just a moment. Right. So the distance is there that it's okay, whatever, over here, over there, whatever the proxy government does, illegal, murdering, killing, or whatever, it's not the responsibility legally, international legally, of the empire where the resources go. So this distance means they, the empire never admits that they are responsible for whatever the proxy does. So you have the US, oh, we're not killing the people in Gaza, we're not killing the Russians. It's the Ukrainians are killing the Russians and the Israelis are killing. We're not killing them. So this this is how they behave, the whole world, and it's only becoming, you know, out into the open with Israel, how the US is still giving weapons to Israel. But this is how the whole system works, the whole world over, and in so it's not okay only to make some nonsense arrest warrant for the in Israel, which would never be fulfilled anyway, and it's we have to look at the whole system of all the proxy countries. So the system used is divide and rule. Divide the proxy countries up. If one rebels, one refuses to sell the resources, then bang, you hit it hard and destroy it. So what's happening at the moment is the what the empire cannot survive, cannot cope with, is the proxy countries will rebel proxy countries, or the former colonized countries uniting against the empire. So you have Iran and its proxies, but actually Iran is fighting the empire, and it is uniting other countries. The other countries, so it doesn't follow the standard definition of a proxy country like um, Lebanon and Yemen, in that the standard proxy country is there to supply resources to the empire. That is the whole reason. Now, Israel is a special case because it's like a anchor in the Middle East for the US. It doesn't sell oil, but the other countries around in the Middle East, they supply oil to to the US. So Israel is the necessary, is like the punching bag. The Arab countries, they attack Israel, they don't attack the US because the US don't want to be attacked directly. They want to put someone cattle fodder to keep the people's minds busy so they don't concentrate on attacking the US. Like Osama bin Laden attacked the US directly, but logistically he only did it once, and once or two or three times, once in big time. But the Arab countries, the ones who are not selling their resources to the empires, they can attack Israel. So Israel has become like the punching bag of the empire. And so instead of attacking the empire directly, they attack Israel, and Israel becomes like the US proxy to fight his wars. And yeah, the proxy the US was using to fight his wars was Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabia was sent after to Yemen in 2015 because the US had just been through a kind of grueling ground war in Iraq, and they didn't want to send in US troops into Yemen. The US public couldn't tolerate another American ground invasion that had got stuck in the mud, like in Iraq. So they sent in Saudi Arabia to attack Yemen. But Saudi Arabia couldn't finish the job. They couldn't finish off the Houthis. They tried and tried, and US bombed rained down on Yemen. UK and US bombs rained down on Yemen from 2014. And it was brutal genocide, but the Houthis survived. They came through the other side. They stopped the Saudi Arabians, and the second. So now the Houthis are standing firm. Iran is standing firm, but they know the US has a lot of bombs to drop on them. Now, just now, Hezbollah didn't sign a peace deal, didn't make a peace deal with Israel. It was the Lebanese government who made a peace deal with Israel. Hezbollah had not lost. Hezbollah had stopped the US, not the US, the Israel, but I say US, but it's almost like US. It's stopped the Israeli ground offensive. They couldn't get into Lebanon. So then they want to divide and conquer. The empires want to divide and conquer. They wanted to divide the empires, conquer them one at a time. So Israel was after Lebanon, and they were stopped. They couldn't get in. So they turned around and they hit Syria, because they think that Syria's supplying, well, it was, Syria was supplying Lebanon. So you have the what the empire cannot cope with is the countries uniting against them. They want to divide and rule. That's how the empire works. So now you have some. The US are saying they have a serious challenge with Yemen. Yes, they want to go in and put the ground forces in Yemen, but they cannot, because it's a mountain region, and they saw what happened in Iraq. So they can kill 1 million Yemenis. The US can bomb, Israel can bomb. They can destroy, they can kill civilians, but they cannot defeat Yemen. Now, Lebanon is just right on the next to Israel, but Yemen is some distance away. And also the US, they can bomb Iran to hell. They can kill 1 million Iranian civilians, but they cannot put a ground offensive on Iran. So we're heading towards like a big bloodbath without a winner. So the only solution is regional self-sufficiency. That means a few countries get together and they form a self-sufficient economy. Now the empires don't agree with this. They won't. Of course, they won't. They don't want a solution. They're making all the money, So the solution can come when the empire, we're talking about the most military active empire, the US empire, when that collapses, and a chain breaks at its weakest point. So the weakest point in the US is not their air force. They have a lot of bombs. They cannot stop them, but the US economy is overspending, and they cannot get their budget. The manufacturing has gone to China, so China have a lot of capital buying up all the world, but the US is just spending, and even with all the empires, the 800 or so military bases and proxy governments, is still cannot balance its books. So when the US economy, when the Wall Street crashes, and they can no longer give military aid to Israel and to other countries around the world, that is when the big trouble comes for Israel. Lebanon, the Hezbollah military is still intact. They're patient. They're not going to attack Israel. But if ever Israel doesn't get the support of the US, then Israel is in trouble. And the technology, is advancing day by day. Like the Houthis, they are testing the US Navy finding the weaknesses, attacking the battleships, finding the because they were colonized, they were exploited to the bone by the British. They were invaded by the Saudis. They're ready. They've been through hell. They've been through genocide. They've been through a blockade. The Saudi Arabia put the blockade around Yemen, and now Yemen has said they are supporting stopping the to stop the also not only the genocide in Gaza, but the most important thing, the Yemenis say they are out to stop the blockade of Gaza.